So this book, Young Forever, what I think is really important here, and Mark and I were just talking about how kind of popular longevity has become. We are an aging world, we're an aging country, and as more and more of us become older, the idea of living longer becomes even more appealing, and how we live longer. I love that you begin this book by asking people, would you actually want to live to 120?
Yeah.
What's your why for that? And I think that is a really good question, because when you originally hear, do I want to live to be 120? You're like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted.
No.
I already have my back and my knees and all that stuff. You say that aging if we begin to treat aging as a disease, and we begin to think of the problems that people encounter in aging not as inevitable.
Yeah.
That actually living to 100 or 120 in good health is a possibility.
Yeah, Maria, I was in Sardinia and Icaria, these blue zones, these places where people live to be well over 100 years old on average. And I was just startled by the vitality of these people who were in their late 90s, early hundreds, who were still functioning members of society, who were still hanging out with their friends. They might have scaled back a little bit on work, but they were still tending their gardens and doing things. It was really impressive to see how much the human body can actually achieve if we learn how to take care of it. And the truth is, most of us have been exposed to a world that makes us age faster. The food we're eating, the sedentary lifestyle, the chronic stress, environmental toxins, all these challenges that we face are driving our biology to age faster. And so what we typically see around us is abnormal aging. We see people becoming frail and decrepit and disabled and dysfunctional and diseased, and that is no fun. Nobody wants to live to be 120 that way, right? But if you can be functional, I saw a guy who was over 100 years old riding his horse. Most people wouldn't go without a walker at 100 years old. This guy's up on his horse riding around straight up as an arrow. So our bodies have that innate capacity to stay young physiologically if we know what to do. And so that's the whole key to the book, Young Forever, is understanding the body's ancient healing mechanisms, these built-in systems for repair, renewal, rejuvenation, and how do we turn those on, and how do we turn off the disease and rapid aging systems that we've actually turned on so badly in our society.
So you talk about these, what you call hallmarks of aging. And the book, I just want to repeat here, it's called Young Forever. And Mark talks about all of the things to do, and we'll get to everybody's questions, but you talk about hallmarks of aging.
Yeah.
Age. And what are those that people can look for, whether you're 40, 50, 60, 70, and 80? And I would also say that Mark says there's no time like right now. You're never too old to implement these changes. So what are these hallmarks of aging?
Well, Maria, it's pretty interesting. Medicine's going a revolution right now where we're changing all of our ideas about disease. And instead of trying to play whack-a-mole where we're treating each disease individually, or diabetes or cancer or heart disease or Alzheimer's, we're understanding that there are these basic things that go wrong that explain all these diseases. So for example, let's say we got rid of heart disease and cancer from the face of the planet, which are the number 1 and 2 killers. We might live another 5 to 7 years. If we got really rid of and fixed all these hallmarks of aging, which are these underlying biological things that go wrong, we might live another 30 or 40 years. So that means for a human, that's 120 years old. So what are they? There are these things that we're familiar with, you might have heard about. For example, how our bodies regulate our blood sugar, which has to do with one of the nutrient sensing pathways, insulin signaling. That's a big one. We talk about Alzheimer's a lot, and that is called type 3 diabetes. But that's happening whether you have heart disease or cancer or diabetes. These are all diseases of problems with insulin signaling. Also, there's a lot of factors that are related to nutrition that govern these key, what we call nutrient sensing pathways. But we also talk about mitochondria, our little energy production factories that go wrong, and our microbiome that changes, and the immune system that becomes dysregulated and become inflamed, or our genes that become a little bit damaged, the DNA damage that happens as a course of replication, or epigenome, which is really cool, this whole science of the epigenome, which is what controls our gene expression. And that is where a lot of the research on longevity is going. How do we reprogram our genes to a younger you? And that is actually what we're now measuring through something called DNA methylation. It measures our epigenetic age, our biological age. So I'm 63. I can't change that. I'm just moving along down the road of getting older chronologically, but I can change my biological age. And I've tested mine. I'm 43 biologically. Maybe I want to get to 25, who knows? But the power of applying the science allows us to reverse our biological age through working on one of these key hallmarks. And many of these hallmarks can be modulated.
How do you do that? If somebody's sitting here listening to this and they're 50 and they want their biological age to be 35, or they're 65 and they want to be 43, what do they have to do starting now in order to reverse aging?
Well, I wish I could say it was take this magic pill or this great new scientific discovery, but it's the basics, Maria. These basic things that we all do wrong. We don't eat the right food. We don't exercise enough. We stress too much and we don't get enough sleep. You fix those things and you're 80% of the way there to correcting all these. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a little things you can do on the 20% that are fun, exciting, like the right supplements or certain types of treatments that are now emerging, like hyperbaric oxygen. But for most of the results you want to get, you can get that very easily through dialing in the right longevity diet. And I talk about in the book, the right types of exercise, and not just any exercise, particularly muscle building, and optimizing your body's mindset and your stress response, which is really through active practices, whether it's breathing or yoga or meditation. I just did a 20-minute meditation before this webinar so I could, reset my system and calm down after a day of patience. So, and I also find sleep is really undervalued, and it's when the brain repairs and heals and renews. So dialing in those things and exactly how to do them, I lay out in the book, is so important. And that works on all these hallmarks of aging. It reduces inflammation. It helps to optimize our mitochondria. It fixes our microbiome. It lengthens our telomeres. It fixes our epigenome. It corrects all these abnormal nutrient pathways, sensing pathways that go wrong. So we have the power really, for a very low cost, is accessible to everybody, to do the right thing by cutting out the crap in our diet, and particularly sugar and starch. We've talked a lot about this, but this is the thing that you want to do if you're going to live a long time, is you really want to reduce starch and sugar. If you want to age fast, go for it. Eat lots of sugar, lots of bread, lots of starchy foods. That's going to really drive aging in an accelerated way. And that's honestly why we're seeing such a decline, Maria, in our life expectancy of the first time in history in the last number of years, because we're all so metabolically unhealthy. 93% plus of us are in poor metabolic health. That means we're somewhere along the spectrum of pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes. So that's something that we can correct through diet, by eating a whole foods, low starch, sugar, low glycemic diet, and with the right kinds of protein, the right types of fats, lots of phytochemicals from plants. And there are certain ones that are really exciting that we can talk about that help with some of these longevity pathways, like green tea or the broccoli family extracts, or curcumin, which is from turmeric, from the spice, or pomegranate extracts. So all these amazing compounds in food that are really medicines, longevity medicines that we can use. But it really isn't that hard to do.
Well, of course, I mean, it is hard. It is because a lot of us know these things, but actually doing it on a day-to-day basis is... The
habits are hard, right? The habit change is hard, right?
Well, you talk a lot, Mark, about the importance of seeing food as medicine. And I think just kind of having that shift in one's mind, that you've been really good about saying, I think it's really helpful that what you put on your fork is the most important decision of your day, that really impacts. I think just that visualization is really helpful to people. But what I like also about in this book is that you're talking about adding the question of why. Yeah. Why does one want to be healthy? What is your why here? And I think, Mark poses that, and I like adding that into this equation of longevity. It's about food, it's about exercise, it's about sleep, it's about de-stressing, but also kind of why to habits. And Mark says in here, his answer to why is love and service. It's to meet myself, my friends, my family, my work with love, and to make the world just a little bit better before I die, to enjoy the gift of this life, to serve and contribute to healing and more love in the world. These are really specific goals.
Yeah, exactly.
That are really important, that help you make better decisions about what to put on the fork, that help you, make decisions about how you want to age. Does that not kind of fuel all of this?
Absolutely. Because, it really is driving almost all my decisions, is what is the quality of my life? What's the quality of my relationships? What's the quality of my work and contribution in the world? And we're only here for a little bit, so we don't want to waste it. This isn't a dress rehearsal, everybody. And the truth is that for whatever reason, I was born with the desire to just make the world a little bit better than when I got here. It's, Common writes in one of his songs, where are you going to put your one grain of spiritual sand on the universal scales of humanity? And I've been lucky enough to find my purpose, which is bringing this new model of healing, functional medicine, into the world, and doing it through lots of avenues. And that keeps me moving and going and learning and growing. And plus, I you kind of hinted at the beginning, as we get older, we get a little smarter, most of us, a little wiser, most of us. And we kind of finally figure out how things work and how to be happy. And then it shouldn't be, end of story. It should be the beginning of actually our real contribution. So I feel like at 63, it may sound crazy to say this, but I'm just kind of getting started. I'm literally just kind of figuring out my life.
Exactly the same way. I feel exactly the same way.